Alright there guys, and welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be talking about the quintessential quintuplets once again. But you're probably thinking, hang on a minute. But you've already covered the 5 quintuplets in your A Deeper Look series. So what are we doing back in this series? Well, now that we have covered all 5 quintuplets, I felt it was only right that we also give the deeper analysis treatment to the character that completes the quintuplets, the character that stands in the middle of all of them and is their centre point. That's why it's time for us to finish off the A Deeper Look series talking about our not-so-dense protagonist, Fuutarou Uesugi. So, Fuutarou is voiced by Yoshisuga Matsuoka, who you may know better as Sora from No Game No Life, Soma Yukihira from Food Wars, and who you all probably know him best as in the last couple of years, Inosuke from Demon Slayer. So, right off the bat, let's talk about why Fuutarou is different from a lot of other harem protagonists, because he is. In the majority of harem manga and anime, the main character will at least have some idea in his mind who he's attracted to, or he may already be in love with one of the characters, such as Raku was already in love with Onodera in Nisekoi, and she was part of the four girl harem in that show. So a lot of harem anime have a character that's already in love with one of the girls in the harem from the beginning, or develops feelings for them. But in the quintuplets, Fuutarou is not like that whatsoever. Instead, when Fuutarou is first asked about romance at the very, very beginning of the show, when Ichika brings it up, Fuutarou says he could not care less about that and thinks it's stupid for anyone at that age to think about romance. Showing you something that the majority of harem protagonists do not do. Actually have feelings for someone or have an idea of who they're attracted to. Whereas Fuutarou could not care about any of that. And that's one of the great things about the quintuplets that makes it better than every other harem anime. Our protagonist does not care for romance, so the girls who become part of the harem have to be the ones to get the idea of romance into his head to begin with and open his feelings up. That's one of the great things about the quintuplets over the rest of harem anime. The main character's emotions actually have to be brought out of him by the girls in the harem. And a lot of harem anime, you have very stupid reasons for why the girls fall in love with the main character. Such as in Nisekoi, Tsugumi's is definitely the one that makes the least sense. Onodera's is because her and Raku are childhood friends. Chitroge basically starts to fall in love with him because they spend so much time together faking a relationship that she actually developed real feelings for him. That kind of makes sense. Whereas Tsugumi literally just fell in love with him because he said nice things to her. That's it. Whereas with Fuutarou, it's very different. Fuutarou builds up a special bond with each quintuplet. And they all have different reasons and things that happen in their lives around Fuutarou that makes them fall in love with him. If we have to go in order, for Ichika, the reason she falls in love with Fuutarou is because he was very supportive of her secret acting, which of course she didn't tell any of the other quintuplets about until the very end of season 1. When Fuutarou heard about this, he didn't say anything bad about it. He was completely okay with it and said, if that's what you really want to do, you should go for it. Fuutarou gave Ichika encouragement. He even helped her with one last rehearsal in the fireworks festival just before Ichika went off to do her audition for that very part. And Ichika didn't really mind sleeping around when Fuutarou entered her bedroom in order to get her up and get her ready for some studying. Then, of course, Ichika reveals in the second season more of why she fell in love with Fuutarou, because of little moments where he just says something nice to her or something that brings out a funny reaction in her, such as when she back when she banged her hand on the window of their apartment before her and Fuutarou went shopping together. Fuutarou asking Ichika what is that mark on her hand, and she said she hid it back at the apartment. And then he says, "You're so clumsy," which makes Ichika blush and realise that's what she fell in love with him for. That's the type of person, that's the side of Fuutarou that she fell in love with. Then when it comes to the special bond he worked with Nino, well, the first season, none of that happens. It's the second season that finally starts happening, where Nino comes to the realisation that she wasn't actually ever in love with Quintessential to begin with. She didn't realise it at the time, and then she finally did, when it was life or death, when she jumped into the nearby pond just outside the quintuplet's new apartment, and Fuutarou had to save her. She realised she actually was falling in love with Fuutarou the entire time. She just thought she was falling in love with Quintessential, who doesn't exist. And when Nino finally does confess, which is still the funniest confession in the entire show, Fuutarou is respectful to Nino he gives her the time that she needs in order before giving his answer. She asks him not to give her an answer just yet, and he doesn't. As horribly as Nino treated Fuutarou in the first season, and the beginning of the second season, he always respected Nino and was always trying to be encouraging to her and on her side, even when he didn't want to be. Then, when it comes to his special bond with Miku, that all started when he found out about Miku's love for the Sengoku warlord of Japanese history, and he said he wasn't bothered by it. He didn't find anything wrong with it. And say, you should be able to like whatever you like. Of course, Miku was embarrassed about that due to the fact she hadn't told anyone else about it. Not her friend, not any friends, not even the other quintuplets. And Fuutarou ended up being the first person to find out by accident. But it's also because of how much time Fuutarou spends with Miku. Because he spends time with her at the fireworks festival, And that's the first time he understands what he says and does can negatively affect other people's feelings. Such as when those two women who were doing a survey were walking round, they mistaked Fuutarou and Miku as a couple because they were holding hands. And then Miku said they were friends, but Fuutarou only said they were just acquaintances. And then, only when he was with Ichika and asked the same question about being friends, did he realise what he said to Miku back then was actually hurtful to her. Fuutarou always was there for Miku when she needed him. Even the little heartfelt moment that the two of them have inside of the igloo right at the end of the first season in the skiing trip, where Fuutarou tells Miku she needs to stop competing with the other quintuplets to try and be equal to them. And he tells her not to be equal, but to be fair. And Miku very much has took that advice on for the rest of the show. Then we come to, then we have the end of Miku's journey, at least in the show, before the movie, where her and Fuutarou are spending time together at the Kyoto trip. And then Miku gives the heartfelt and best confession in the entire show to Fuutarou right at the end. Then that leaves us on to Yotsuba. Now, the bond with Fuutarou and Yotsuba was quite different to the other quintuplets, because the bond between Yotsuba and Fuutarou actually began when they were kids, back when they first met at Kyoto, when they were kids. That's when the bond between the two of them first started. Even though in the show so far, Fuutarou still isn't aware the girl in the photo is Yotsuba. And the fact that you find that out, how does he find that out? Maybe he finds that out later in the manga, which means in the movie he'll finally have it revealed to him that Yotsuba was the girl in the photo all along. But the thing with Fuutarou and Yotsuba is they never needed to even create a bond between the two of them, because Yotsuba's willingness to study under Fuutarou's guidance from the get-go already established that those two were going to have a good bond to each other. And the two of them don't get to spend a whole lot of time alone together, just the two of them. The only time Fuutarou and Yotsuba really do spend time together, just the two of them, is right near the end of season 2, when the two of them are on that go on a little, Yotsuba calls it a date, so we'll have to say date, because that's what Yotsuba would say. The date they go on right at the end, just before the Kyoto trip, where Fuutarou asks Yotsuba what does she want, and everything she picks is for one of the other quintuplets. And then Fuutarou reminds her, what do you want? Because everything you've said so far, you've been thinking about the others. This is about you, Yotsuba. And the fact that Yotsuba gave Fuutarou a little peck on the cheek, swooping in there before any of the other quintuplets could. And the bond between Fuutarou and Yotsuba is more of they are always very understanding towards each other. Even when they took a break in one of the episodes and went to that amusement park, Yotsuba continued to study on the Ferris wheel. And of course, if you've read the manga, you know exactly what Fuutarou and Yotuba's bond turns into, or if you've watched the movie since it released a week and a half ago. Well, at least in Japan it did. Still no idea when it'll release over here in the West. I'm hoping for before the end of this year. And finally we have the bond between Fuutarou and Itsuki. Of course, Itsuki is the only quintuplet out of the 5 of them that doesn't actually ever fall in love with Fuutarou. Her bond with him is more of an admiration, and Fuutarou is the one that helps Itsuki realise that being a teacher is what she wants to do. And a little bit of help from Shimona-san, who, of course, was... Back when she was in school, she was taught by the quintuplet's mother. So by the end of the show, after so much arguing that Fuutarou and Itsuki do throughout the show, because that's mostly what they are doing when they're not getting along, is Itsuki comes to her realisation that she doesn't love Fuutarou, she doesn't have feelings for him, but she does have a great admiration for him and what he's managed to do for the quintuplets over the course of the 2 seasons. And that's our analysis for Fuutarou Uesugi. Someone who was very cold as a person towards most people until the quintuplets brought out more happy emotions from him. And his different actions around the quintuplets is what made each one of them fall in love with him for different reasons. Which not only makes the show great, but what makes him actually a really good harem protagonist. Because none of the reasons that the girls fall in love with him are stupid. They all make sense within the show. And to end off the video, since I ended off the previous quintuplets video really fast, yes, everything I did say at the end of that video is true. The quintessential quintuplets over the past year, well, almost year and a half now, yeah, pretty much the last year and a half, has become my favourite anime of all time. It really has managed to make that much of an impact for me in that such a short space of time. Which is why I'm so beyond excited to finally watch the movie when I can. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys have enjoyed. If you have, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you do, and there'll be some more quintuplets content in the future before the movie releases here in the West. But until next time, catch you later.